Hey, do you remember me? Let me introduce myself. My name is Brigitte, and I do have a YouTube channel, although I haven't posted in a while. It's been about 10 months, so you know what? I figured let's do a big life update. Well, we have a lot to cover today, and let's start out with a story, shall we? We moved, which if you have been following along and watched about a year ago, we announced that we were moving from South Florida north. And it was a big move for us. I have lived down south for my whole life, and so I've never lived in another county except for a year ago when we moved. Well, 10 months precisely. When we moved, we found a house to rent because it was the best and easiest way to move on short notice. And though we had been planning it, obviously we wanted to move up here in time to settle for a couple weeks before I started a new job. Also one of the things I'm gonna talk about. We moved up here, got a place. It was managed by a property management company. And they told us, oh, your electricity is with this company. We called that company, actually no, our electricity was with another company. We called them, set up everything with them, and unbeknownst to us, no one told us, by either company or our property management company, that we needed to turn on our gas. Because guess what? Our heat for the entire house and our water heater runs on gas. So guess what? We got internet hooked up, we got electricity hooked up, water hooked up, but no gas. Now this wouldn't be a problem in South Florida because, well, it's always hot. And who cares? You could do without a hot shower, you know, it's fine, you'll live, right? Well, where we moved, the night we moved in, it got down into, I think it was the high 20s. And our place had been vacant for about a year. The Lord literally saved this property for us. It was about 8:30 when we pulled into the driveway, PM, by the way, after packing for 2 days straight and driving up here. We got everyone settled as far as we plugged in our freezer because we have that huge, gigantic commercial, biggest non-commercial freezer you can buy. Hooked that up, got the kids on mattresses on the floor, got our mattress on the floor. People that we had that night went to a hotel. Well, actually, before we laid down, we tried to get a hot shower. Was not heating up. We're like, okay, is it hooked up backwards? We're trying every which way. Finally, we're like, you know, maybe we don't have hot water right now. Okay, fine, no big deal. I guess our hot water heater maybe runs on the gas. Okay, we figured it out. We didn't have gas hooked up because we didn't know we had gas in general, but we did. So fine, we lay down. It's now like 1 a.m. and we can't get this thermostat to heat up. And we thought it was just like, it was like weirdly programmed and we were gonna replace it with our Nest, but it's, again, 1 a.m, we're exhausted after packing for 2 days straight, driving all the way up here. And then like, we're just so tired. And mind you, Baylor, our sweet little boy, is 9 weeks old, I think. We're freezing our butts off in the house. It is like probably in the 40s in the house because it's in the high 20s outside. We had no heat. And we had barely anything in the house because we hadn't really unpacked. And we were so cold. We were this close to pulling the kids out of bed and going to a nearby hotel because we were freezing. We were microwaving baby wipes in the microwave to heat them up and wipe down. We had the oven on and we're standing in front of it at like 1 a.m. It was crazy. So we piled as many blankets and pillows and towels that we could find on the kids, and we are huddled together. The baby is sleeping on top of me to keep warm because he's 9 weeks old and the tiniest little thing. And that was our first night in our new place, and it was insane. The next night we had, my aunt and uncle gave us a space heater, so that heated up the kids' room, and then we had Brandon's sister bought us another space heater for our room. And then all of our furniture was in the house. It was a lot warmer. That night, it was not as cold as the previous night. But man, our property management company got an earful. And a 9-week-old in a 40-degree house because they didn't tell us that you have to turn on the gas because we didn't even know we had it because we lived hours and hours away and couldn't even look at the property again, like except for when we like first toured it. It was insane. We couldn't get it turned on for 2 days because we moved up on a Saturday, Friday night morning. I don't know. It was the weekend. It was the whole weekend. We didn't have it turned on. So Monday morning they came out. They were super nice when they came out. And we got it turned on. It was fine. The space heaters helped a ton the next couple of nights. Plus it was not as cold, so that was also helpful. But it was quite an experience. We were so exhausted and all we wanted was a hot shower. So that was my first introduction to our new area. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be crazy. So we moved. We moved hours away from everything we knew, left my job that I had been at for 16 years, left our whole community, our church family, our literal biological family, and we moved north to put ourselves in a position to eventually buy land. We really couldn't even afford to stay where we were. It was getting so expensive, and we wanted land and that just didn't exist where we were. You couldn't buy it, not in the size that we wanted. So we moved in order to be closer to the place where we would want to buy. That is update number one. Number two is that, well, we moved and I had to start a new job. So Brandon is working from home, and that is going well, by the way. And if you haven't checked out madetohomeschool.com, I'll leave a link. Go check it out, especially if you homeschool, which is another thing I'm gonna talk about in a minute, but more on that after I talk about my new job. I started a new job and I was very fearful because, you know, you go into a new place, you don't know the people or the personalities or how things work, and I was pretty nervous. And not to mention, I was working in an office, which I worked in a hospital before, and I was doing something, though it was ultrasound, it was more specialized than I had been doing. So I had had experience in all types of other ultrasounds, from abdomen, OBGYN, pediatric, vascular. I did some breast ultrasounds, a lot of procedures, a lot of things that you do in the hospital that aren't done in an office, and specifically in like a high-risk OB office. So I was doing maternal fetal medicine ultrasounds now, so checking a lot of, you know, when you're pregnant and you get an anatomy scan when you're about halfway through at 20 weeks. I was doing a lot of those now, and I had never done those before. So I had seen a lot of OB, but not specifically doing some of the more high-risk ultrasounds. So I started and got the hang of it. It's obviously been 10 months now, and I really like it. Didn't think I would, but now I don't know that I would want to go back to a hospital. I do sometimes miss doing the other types of ultrasounds, but I really like what I'm doing now. And everyone's walkie-talkie, like they come in, it's pregnant women. We do some like GYN stuff. So obviously they're not pregnant, but all women, and it's pretty cool. I really like it, and it's going very well. I work Monday through Friday, which is still an adjustment. I have weekends and holidays off, which is great, but having to work and go 5 days a week in a row is definitely not my favorite, but the alternative is not my favorite either. So with anything, there's pros and cons, and for right now, I think it's serving our family very well, and I get to get home at a decent time, even if I get out late. I don't live super far from where I work. Traffic can make it a little bit longer of a drive, but all in all, it's going pretty well. Also, you like my fire? It's not real. It's the TV. But isn't it so nice? We've obviously decorated for Christmas. So pretty. Okay, on to the next thing. We're gonna talk about homeschool. So, in addition to moving, start a new job, we pulled the kids out of school because we knew we were moving last Christmas. We didn't know. We were planning to, but I was on maternity leave, and so the goal was to try to line something up so that I could give a month's notice and still have a couple weeks up here to settle in before actually starting, because I didn't want to move up on like a weekend and then start that next week. Like, that would have been crazy to have the whole house in a chaotic mess and then try to go start a new job. The Lord, in his perfect timing, provided something in the time frame that we needed, and so we moved up. But homeschooling, we pulled them out around Christmas for the Christmas break from the private Christian school they were at, and we started homeschooling. Now, we had wanted to in the past and never thought it would be something we'd be able to do because I worked and like Brandon worked, and we didn't know how we would be able to do that. But it got to a point where we couldn't afford to send them to the private Christian school, and we just kind of got sick of being tied to an institution. It was a great school, but we have loved the fact that we've been able to choose their curriculum and to choose what they're learning and how we structure their days. The first half of the year, we used whatever curriculum that he had from the school. So his workbooks we were able to get from the private Christian school, and we kind of just worked through those in order to kind of finish out the year. So when he started 4th grade, which is what he's in now, we were able to pick for the different subjects, different curriculum companies according to kind of what our styles are, what we thought would resonate with him. And I am happy to report it's going very well. It's definitely an adjustment, and I can see why people say that it takes a good 3 to 5 years to kind of get in a groove, because you're learning the curriculum and how it's set up, they're learning it, you're learning how to navigate it all together, how to best structure your days. I can definitely see that it's going to take a little bit of time still, but we have just loved the autonomy of it. Brielle has started kindergarten, so we're really working on reading with her, and she's really shown an interest in the last couple months. When she was in the private Christian school in pre-K 4, they did kindergarten curriculum, so she was already starting to read, but I feel like in the chaos of moving and everything that was going on, it kind of fizzled out, and she really didn't have a drive to want to learn how to read. From our infinite wisdom from the people in Made to Homeschool and our friends there, we were like, okay, let's just give her the space. Everyone reads at different ages and at speeds that are different. And so we gave her the space, and she has really, in the past couple of months, shown that she wants to read. So that's very cool. It's very cool to see. And now you may be thinking, well, how do you homeschool if you're both working? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's hard. I'm out of the house, and I'm working not in the home. Brandon is the one home, but he's working from home. So what happens most of the time is that Brandon will do some lessons with them, and I will check work in the evenings and sometimes do a lesson or something on a Saturday. And mind you, if you're new to homeschooling, you're not sitting doing school at home like you would in a public school or a private school. You are teaching for an hour, maybe 2 hours. Then you're doing intentional things at other times, but it's not formally where you sit down and this is what you're doing, this is our book work, and this is that. When you really, and this was a perspective shift for us, when you really look at life as your canvas for learning, it changes the way you see school. So we are more intentional now in trying to foster ways to teach them. So we take every opportunity we can to try and instill knowledge into them. It's not just when they're sitting here and I'm saying, here's your paper, color here, or write your numbers here, or do this math here. We are at the store and we are talking about money. We're talking about savings. We're talking about budgeting. We're talking about items. It's not just when you're sitting at the table. We are really doing a lot in life in general. And honestly, they have a lot of playtime. They are having a childhood, which I think is awesome. We live on a cul-de-sac, and so a few houses down, there's a set of grandparents, and their grandkids come over every week and hang out. They do some schooling with them, and then they play outside. So our kids met these 3 children and started playing with them like every week when they would come over. And so we're like, well, we should probably like talk to the grandparents. So Brandon went over and was chatting with them. And then we found out they were Christian and that they homeschooled those kids. And we're like, well, hey, that's pretty cool. Like, you know, our kids are just starting homeschooling. Like, that's pretty awesome. And so immediately they had friends, right? And then we're like, well, we should get to know their parents because like our kids play together every week. Like, let's talk to them. Turns out they are so cool and are becoming some of our closest friends. And he is a homeschool dad, which is like crazy because there's very few of them out there. And they have a very similar dynamic in their home because she works outside of the home and he works from home on their business and homeschools the kids. And it's like, what? Like, God, in all of your goodness and graciousness, like you gave us a family so close that can help us through this like weird time. Like, because most of the time it's the mom who homeschools and she stays at home and like, that's our goal, right? But right now that's not our reality. And so we want to thrive where we are. And so we're like, well, how do we do this? And then God sends a family that has a very similar situation that can like speak to us in that. And that's so amazing. So it's been really, really cool. And now you might be thinking, what about the baby? What about Baylor? Well, Brandon had him for about a week and then he realized this is not going to work. He can watch him and he can homeschool the kids, but he can't do those things and work. And he can't do those things and stay healthy and sane, really. So we had a really like heart-to-heart conversation because also it was going to cost a lot of money to send him to daycare. And we weren't budgeting for that. It took everything we had to move up here. And God provided. He provided in miraculous ways. I mean, we're talking envelopes filled with money from people that we just felt like so humbled by it. And so we decided, well, if we're going to grow the business, Brandon has to be able to work. And homeschooling, we're not homeschooling. It's not an option anymore. Like, no matter what it takes, we will homeschool our children now. And so Baylor had to go to daycare. And my thought process was, I'd rather be watching him, right? But he's also a baby. He's very young, and he won't remember. Right now, I need someone to love him, to care for him, to feed him, to snuggle with him, and he'll be okay. And our other kids went to daycare, and that's what worked for us then. And we're going to grow our business, and we're going to continue to trust the Lord that he will provide because he always does. And sometimes it looks different than what we expect. And so he's in daycare. And the one we were at ended up closing down, not because of like bad practices or whatever, but the people who are managing it weren't doing great with the money. It was a fair price that they were charging, so it wasn't any of that. But we loved it there. They ended up shutting down. We tried another daycare for 1 week. No bueno. It was terrible. So we ended up pulling him there, losing money, and sending him to another place, and they've been wonderful. So he's been there for, I don't know, several months now. And he's thriving, and he's walking. It's craziness. He just turned 1, and he is like full on, like he will do laps around this house. It's crazy how much he has grown. I'll try to insert some B-roll here, but how many teeth do you have? You have 5? He is thriving. He is such an eater, man. He's not like chunky, but oh my gosh, he is just the cutest. And when he smiles, he just lights up my world. Oh, babies don't keep. But he is doing very well. I'm so glad that we had him. And if you have listened to any of our other stories about him, and just the little miracle baby that he is, like, it's just amazing. I'm so glad that we listened to God and we had a 3rd baby. So far we've got moved, new job, homeschooling. We've also got new community. So we knew as soon as we moved, we had to find a church. So we went church shopping. And it's hard to do, man. We had been to one or two before we moved up here. We went to a few more, took the kids, and finally we found one. We found it because of Facebook, which you know I really don't like Facebook, but Brandon posted on some homeschool group like, hey, does anyone know about like a church around here, yada yada. And somebody tagged someone else in it. It was like, hey, there's a lot of homeschool families at this church and yada yada. So we ended up trying it out. Brandon, everywhere we went, Brandon talked to somebody in leadership or the pastor and just wanted to get to know them, to sit with them, talk with them. So he would ask them to go out to coffee or something and would just pick their brain, right? Especially having been in a church and working at a church. It was something very important for him to kind of know what's really going on with the church. And there were some red flags at some of the church, things that are non-negotiables for us that I won't get into right now. But when he sat down with this pastor of the church we're going to now, he was just awesome. And he was like, how are you doing? How is your marriage? When Brandon started grilling him, and Brandon was like, well, I'm so glad you asked. Like, seriously, is so genuine, cares about the people in his church. And so we have found a home there, and there are many homeschool families there, and it's been great. I think our kids have more friends that they play with now than they did before we moved. And we've been trying to be intentional with having people over and getting to know them. We've had the stomach bug going through our house last week, 2 weeks ago. That wasn't fun. But in general, we try to reserve Sundays as a day to invest into community. And it's been a really good way to just meet people in the area. And because we moved and we have to find all new everything, we had to find new medical care and dental care and all of that fun stuff. And so that's been quite a journey. In the midst of all that, right before we moved, we knew that Brielle was probably gonna need some dental work. Turns out it was pretty extensive dental work that she needed, and it's actually not shocking because Benjamin, pretty much at the same age, needed to go under anesthesia and have a ton of dental work done. I don't know what it is. They say genetics because I'm like, listen, we don't do anything different than everyone else. Like, what is going on with their teeth? So she had to go under anesthesia. We waited a couple of months and finally got her in, and they did a whole bunch of stuff. They ended up pulling her 2 front teeth. So now that whole song, All I Want for Christmas is My 2 Front Teeth, definitely applies to her. And she actually lost her first tooth on the bottom, and the other one next to it is wiggly. So it's so funny because both of our kids had teeth pulled before they lost them naturally. Thanks, Mom, for the great dental genes. She's doing well, though. She has recovered. It was some months of pain, which broke my heart. But she's doing very well now. Growing up so fast. Like, their faces are just maturing. It's just crazy, guys, how fast kids grow up. And so it's almost Christmas. The last Christmas we had, Baylor was about a month old, 6 weeks old. And I'm just so excited for this Christmas. And we're in a new place. We actually get cooler weather, which is great because it actually feels more like Christmas. And overall, it was a very good decision for us to move. It was taxing. It was crazy. It was, sometimes I would just look at Brandon and say, did we really just move? Like, sometimes I feel like we didn't move. Like, how do we have this whole other life? I don't know. I've never moved so far from where I was. We would move houses in the same town, but even then, like, I could always go to the same doctor or to the same workplace or same, you know, like, to totally uproot our lives. I've just never done that. And to me, it was crazy. And sometimes we would just look at each other in disbelief, you know, like, did we just move our whole family? But it was a good decision. And so in case you are wondering what's been going on, that's the gist of it. We're excited for Christmas. I'm excited to shoot some more content. I am planning to edit this and upload it in the next day or two. And so the day after that, there's gonna be a video coming out, a big compilation of some of my favorite recipes that I've done on this channel, all compiled into one, so that when you're making stuff for the holiday season or you just want some new inspiration, go check out that video when it comes out tomorrow. Or if you're watching this a day late, then it should be already out, and I will try to link it down below. Before I say goodbye, please comment down below and let me know how you're doing. I know that I posted a community post, and Jessica, you already commented, and it was so warming to my heart that you were excited to see me post something, because I really have missed you guys, and like, I know your names when they come across in comments, and I'm so thankful for you guys. And so until we meet again, don't forget, life is better together. Bye.